Breaking news! Something big is happening in the NFC East, and it could be a game changer. We're talking about a direct impact on Philadelphia's path to another Super Bowl run, a power shift that could leave a division rival stumbling for years. And the best part? I'll tell you all the details in a moment, but first make sure you hit that like button if you believe the Eagles can make it to the Super Bowl again. Man, I totally believe it. If possible, comment something like this: "With Howie in charge, we can do it. Go Eagles." The road could get even better for the Eagles. All of this is thanks to a series of baffling moves by the Washington Commanders. Moves that could end up giving the Eagles an even easier path to dominance. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because when you hear exactly what Washington did this offseason, you'll shake your head, maybe even laugh, and then realize just how good the Eagles are. Here's the deal. The Commanders had everything lined up for a franchise-defining offseason. They had money, lots of it. They had the opportunity to build through the draft. They had a young quarterback coming off a solid rookie year. This was their chance to challenge the Eagles, close the gap, and make a real push in the NFC East. Instead, they did the opposite. They went all in, overpaying aging players, sacrificing future assets, and making desperate, confusing moves that could end up backfiring spectacularly. Let's start with one of the biggest shockers, the trade for Deebo Samuel. Now, don't get me wrong, Deebo is a name, but is he still a game changer? That's where things get murky. The Commanders went out and traded for him, fully guaranteeing his contract for the 2025 season. But here's the thing, he's 29, coming off the worst year of his career, and looked out of shape last season. This is not the same Deebo that was terrorizing defenses in 2021. He's still talented, sure, but Washington just made a massive financial commitment to a guy who, at best, might be their number 2 option. That's not the kind of move you make when you're trying to build a long-term winner. And then there's this. The Commanders made another splashy trade, this time for offensive tackle Laremy Tunsil. Again, another big name. But if you dig deeper, there are some serious concerns. Yes, Tunsil has been one of the better tackles in the NFL over the past few years, but he's not the same player he once was. Last season, he was one of the most penalized offensive linemen in the entire league. And here's where it gets even better. Who does he have to block in this division? A young, relentless Eagles pass rush, full of speed and power. Guys like Hassan Reddick, Jalen Carter, Josh Sweat, just imagine them lined up across from a slowing down Tunsil. That's a disaster waiting to happen for Washington. But maybe the worst move of all? The signing of Javon Kinlaw. This one is just unbelievable. The Commanders gave him a massive contract, $15 million per year. Let me repeat that, $15 million per year. And here's the kicker. Kinlaw has never been a consistent impact player. In fact, he might not even start for Washington next season. They already have Darren Payne and Johnny Newton on the defensive line. So why pay a rotational piece like a superstar? That's the kind of move that gets a front office in trouble. And it doesn't stop there. The Commanders doubled down on an aging roster by signing a laundry list of players who are past their prime. Defensive tackle Eddie Goldman, 31 years old. Defensive end Dietrich Wise, 30 years old. Safety Will Harris, 29 years old. Cornerback Jonathan Jones, 31 years old. And the trend continues. Washington has signed, traded for, or re-signed 12 players who are already 30 or older, with another 7 players turning 30 before the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, let's take a step back and compare that to the Eagles. Philly has done the exact opposite. They've focused on keeping their roster young, letting overpriced veterans walk, and building through the draft. And speaking of the draft, here's where things get even better for the Birds.
Over the next 2 years, the Eagles have a staggering 21 draft picks, including 11 picks in the first 4 rounds. That's a war chest of talent waiting to be developed. Washington, they have just 10 picks total in the next 2 drafts. That means the Eagles have more picks in the first 4 rounds alone than the Commanders have in total. That's not just a small advantage, it's massive. While the Eagles continue to stack young talent and develop for both the present and the future, Washington is mortgaging their long-term success for a short-term gamble that looks doomed to fail. And that's where the real impact comes in. Washington was supposed to be one of the biggest threats to the Eagles in the NFC East. But when you break down their moves, it's hard to see them actually closing the gap. Instead, it looks like they're putting themselves in a position to struggle, not just this season, but for years to come. Now, I've got to ask you, Eagles fans, what do you think? Is Washington making the right moves, or are they setting themselves up for disaster? Are they really a threat to the Birds, or are they just making it easier for Philly to run the division for the foreseeable future? Let me know your thoughts in the comments comments, but here's where things get really interesting, Eagles fans. The Commanders aren't just making questionable decisions in free agency. Their entire team-building strategy is completely out of sync with what works in today's NFL. And when you compare their approach to what the Eagles are doing, it's night and day. It's a masterclass in how to build a contender versus how to dig yourself into a hole. Let's break it down. Right now, the Eagles are operating like a machine. Every move is calculated. Every contract is structured to maintain flexibility. Every draft pick is used to ensure both short-term and long-term success. They're thinking years ahead. Meanwhile, the Commanders are throwing money at aging players, trading away draft picks, and making desperate signings that seem more about making headlines than actually improving the team. And that's what should really excite Eagles fans. Because when a division rival starts making these types of mistakes, it opens the door for Philly to dominate even more. The Commanders are playing a dangerous game. Let's talk numbers. Washington has spent a ton of money this offseason, but have they actually improved? Not really. In fact, you could argue that they've gotten worse in some areas. They overpaid for multiple players who are past their prime. They traded away future draft assets for win-now moves that may not even help them win now. They failed to address key weaknesses, instead opting for splashy, high-risk moves. And here's the biggest issue of all, they don't have the draft capital to fix these mistakes. Like we said earlier, the Commanders have just 10 picks total over the next 2 years. That's barely half of what the Eagles have. And when you look at where those picks are positioned, they don't have nearly as many high-value selections. The Eagles, on the other hand, they're stacked. 21 picks over the next 2 drafts. 11 picks in the first 4 rounds. Multiple first-round selections lined up for the future. That's how you stay dominant. That's how you build a dynasty. Washington is trying to compete with Philly, but they're doing it in the worst way possible. Instead of being smart, patient, and strategic, they're making emotional, short-term moves that could come back to haunt them for years. The NFC East is Philadelphia's to lose. Let's not sugarcoat it. The Eagles are built to win now and in the future. Jalen Hurts is locked in as the franchise QB. The offense is stacked with young, explosive talent. The defense is a nightmare for opposing teams, with a mix of veteran leadership and rising stars. The front office is light years ahead of Washington's in terms of planning and execution. Meanwhile, the Commanders are scrambling. They want to challenge the Eagles, but they're doing it with old players, bad contracts, and limited draft resources. That's a recipe for disaster. And let's not forget, this isn't just about the division. The Eagles are focused on winning another Super Bowl. The moves they're making aren't just about staying ahead of Washington. They're about staying ahead of everyone. Washington, they're just trying to keep up. And based on their decisions this offseason, it doesn't look like they'll be able to. So what's next? The Eagles are in a golden position right now. They've got the talent, the coaching, the draft picks, and the long-term plan to be dominant for years to come. The Commanders, they're rolling the dice with an aging roster, hoping that this gamble pays off. But let's be honest, how often does that really work in the NFL? Now, I want to hear from you, Eagles fans. Are the Commanders a real threat, or are they just setting themselves up for failure? Do you see Washington closing the gap, or are they just making it easier for Philly to run the division for the next decade? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you love seeing Washington make mistakes. Go Eagles!